Welcome to Spectral Shadows, where the darkness whispers and the unseen lurks. Tell me, where are you watching from, and what time is it? Because horror feels different at night, especially when you're alone. Those who love their mother, like, share, and comment. Subscribe, if you dare. Now turn off the lights, and let's begin. Story number 1. "This is still dumb," says George. He holds up the stack of note cards, squints at them through the flicker of the firelight. But it's real dumb. Our campfire has started to burn low in the gathering dark, and the embers swirl up and away in a sudden gust of autumn wind. I shiver, and I pause the video I'm recording to pick up another log. "It's okay, George." I flash him a smile. We just want the money, right? We don't morally censure. Carol starts to smile a bit at that too, but Caden presses his lips together and she stops. "Sure," says Caden. "Sure. I think it's a pretty unique." "Okay. Anyway, it's a simple mission. Pick your favorite joke card, read the joke, discuss." Jules pans over to the creepy houses while our silvery laughter echoes through the endless dark. And scene. Found money, baby. George makes a face and shifts his bulk in the camp chair. Maybe. He looks down the street to where the dead neighborhood crouches in the twilight. 12 ranch-style brick houses, all dark, all abandoned, some with collapsed roofs and rioting weeds boiling through empty windows. No graffiti, though. The local teens have been oddly restrained in that regard. We've been out here maybe an hour, in the deep woods behind the Forest Pals Campaganza resort. It's early October, and the resort is closed for the year, so there's no one to notice as we ride past the shuttered cabins in George's customized golf cart with the off-road wheels. We leave the camp behind and plunge into the darkening woods. And after a dim and very bumpy 30 minutes, the trail opens out and we find ourselves in the cul-de-sac. The rugged dirt track gives way to cracked asphalt, and George brings the cart to a halt and shuts the engine off. He's listening. For what, I don't know. And I'm grateful that Caden has the grace not to interrupt, at least for now. I use the time to get the camera fired up and shoot some footage of our surroundings. We're parked at the end of a fair-sized street, long enough to accommodate the 5 crumbling brick houses on each side, and 2 at the end, plus the weed-choked empty fields that butt up against the woods and flank the golf cart on both sides. Beyond, the dark trees loom thick and tall in all directions. It's as if someone airdropped a bulldozer and some construction materials into the trackless wilderness, built this place, and then left it all to rot. On our left, a bent and rusted metal pole, topped with a faded green rectangle, rises out of a pricker bush. It's a street sign, clearly, and I zoom in closer to try to read the lettering, but it's too faded, and the light of the setting sun too dim. Carol, true to form, takes notice of my plight and plays her pocket flashlight over the sign's surface. It's still a tough read, but with her help, I can barely make out the ghosts of the letters. Beasts Afield CT. That doesn't seem like an actual name, and I begin to wonder in earnest who built this place and why. I turn the camera away. Carol clicks her flashlight off, and a moment later George restarts the engine and drives us right down the street to the circle at the end. There are a couple of dilapidated street lamps dotted around here, none of which actually work, and a long low car with the world's most 1970s brown-on-gold paint job has crashed into one of them a long time ago, to judge from the creeping vines wrapped around the hood ornament. George pulls the golf cart alongside and glares through the remains of the windshield. Caden grins big from the shotgun seat and lets out a whoop. "This is awesome," George, buddy, I take back everything I said. You got us here in style. He claps George on the shoulder and lets out a woo-hoo that echoes back from the empty houses and the woods beyond. Okay, let's do this up. Babe, you get the chairs set up and start the fire going. Get your brother to help you. He likes carrying things. Jules, grab that camera and follow me. The lady wants footage. We'll give her. Hold up, says George, and climbs out of the driver's seat. He walks over to the dead sedan, opens the passenger door, fumbles around inside. For a moment he falls still, and all I can see are his legs around the side of the open door. The wind picks up and whistles through a dozen crumbling chimneys, and suddenly I don't want to be here anymore. Suddenly this all seems very unwise, and George needs to get out of that car. And why isn't he moving? Is something? George backs out of the car, straightens up, and slams the door shut. He tucks a book-shaped package under his coat and gets back in the driver's seat. Okay, he says, and swings the golf cart around in a tight circle. Hey, yells Caden. Where are we going? I said we need to... Camp, says George, and keeps the pedal floored until we're back at the far end of the street, where the trail opens out. We'll set up here, if you still want to do this. And so, we do. Now the fire is lit, and the dark is almost here. Caden grabs the log off my lap and tosses it into the flames, sending up a shower of sparks and getting a small scream out of Carol. Far away and deep in the woods, something big rustles and falls, silent. Caden claps his hands together, favors George with his best leading man grin. Well, anyway, you're on, big guy. We rolling, Jules? We aren't, but I get the camera going again and point it in George's direction. He picks the first of the joke cards off the stack, holds it up with 2 fingers, and wrinkles his nose at it. Jokes, huh? Caden clenches his fists in the air like he's milking a giant cow. George, buddy, sometimes I despair of you. It's like art jokes, okay? It's not gonna be someone slipping on a banana peel. He makes a twirling gesture. Just keep rolling, Jules. We can cut this out. Let's get through this, okay, big guy? Do it for your sister. George sighs. Okay, here we go. The priest of the sun was exultant. As this blackness falls, he reasoned, can yellow be far behind? He glares at the card a moment longer, then shoves it onto the back of the stack and hands the lot to me. We get how much for this again? 500 each. Caden savors each word like vintage port, then gives Carol's arm a playful punch. That's a whole lot of costumes, am I right? Caden's whole thought is currently bent on funding the first ever theatrical production of something called Nodens, a comedy, which is written by Caden and stars Carol, and which I am definitely going to be forced to sit through at the end of the semester. The thought of costumes finally gets a smile out of Carol. And a whole lot of sets, she says. Thanks so much for doing this, guys. Caden grins wider. How about it, George? Gonna donate your take to the arts? Help us breathe faint life into these gossamer strands of fragile creation. George reaches down into his backpack, takes out a beer, and cracks it open. Nope. Caden's smile falters just a bit. Well, okay. You did bring the wheels, so, okay. Your turn, Jules. It is indeed my turn. I look around first. Our little ring of light and warmth seems very small against the night. Down the street, shadows leap and flicker across the sagging brick walls of the dead houses. 6 on each side, and 2 at the end, like taxidermied soldiers standing guard over. There were only 12, Carol says. I stand up slowly and look harder. 6 on each side, and 2 at the end. The front rooms of the nearest ones caved in like toothless jaws. Leading up to each front door are cement steps, covered in green astroturf that has gone faded and lumpy in the sun. I gulp. We must have miscounted. Maybe, Carol says. She bites her lip and turns toward the fire. I'm not sure I like this place. Babe, Caden's indignant now. Of course you don't like this place. I mean, you heard her say why they shut it down, right? Carol nods. The soldiers that lived here, they went crazy, right? Fought each other. So the army closed it all up. She shivers. I don't think it's that. It's... The fire crackles and pops. I don't know, I just don't like it. Caden stands up and starts tossing logs in the fire. 1, 2, 3, right after the other. They smoke and blaze, and shadows dance across our faces as the wind blows harder. It smells like rain and crackling leaves. I know, he says. I know, babe. That's why we get paid the big bucks, though, right? We're telling these jokes on the very same street where Major McClarty made his final stand. We tell him outside Chuck E. Cheese's instead. It lacks a certain cachet, you know? People are going to know that Major McClarty holed up beside that fence. I don't know about that, says George. Caden rounds on him. Yeah? Look, Georgie, I know you're not exactly a lifetime patron of the opera or anything, but you gotta see that if you take this place, this legend, and sprinkle in the dramatic tension of feckless teens yucking it up, it makes for George drinks beer and sighs. What legend is that? Major McClarty. Never heard of him. Caden throws up his hands. The lady told us, George. Jules, are you still rolling? Make sure you keep this part for George, in case he forgets again. The lady explained this back at the inn when she offered us the job, right? About Major McClarty, and how this place has been hidden out here for years behind the camp, because the army... I know what she said. George crumples up his beer can and places it lovingly into his backpack. It didn't fit. I've lived here all my life. And Caden nods gravely. That's what I love about you, George. What we all love about you. You're constant. I give him a look. Keep it up, and we're going to have a problem. Carol blinks at me. Caden puts up his palms. Okay. Geesh. I didn't know he was your beau or whatever. All I'm saying is knock it off. George, you tell it. I wasn't there, and I'd like to hear. George nods. Thanks, Julie. So, the story this lady told to sell us on the job. Major McClarty, a bunch of soldiers blowing up their own street. I went to school 3 miles from here, and the kids, they'd have told that story 5 times every recess. We'd have ridden our bikes out here on weekends and had cap gun fights, but we didn't. Know why? Caden just looks. 'Cause it didn't happen, says George. I went to the library after and asked around. The police station, too. Nobody knew about it, and they'd know. Caden rubs his hair, but the lady said, I know she did, says George. I didn't like her. I'm wearing my heaviest parka, and it's working less effectively than I might have hoped. I lean closer to the fire. Maybe I should tell my joke. Carol gives me an encouraging smile. Go for it, Julie. Let's get this over with. I set the camera where it can see my face and pick up the next card. The neat words stare up at me, all loops and whirls and occasional flourishes. I clear my throat. Beneath the earth, I read, there lurked a house with windows the color of spilled oil and bruises. A man once walked into it, singing, things go in and out of my head, things go in and out of my head. I pause. Is that it? Carol asks. No, I say. Sorry, it says to pause there. Then it says, he was more right than he knew. We all fall quiet a moment. The flames crackle and the shadows leap. Is that it? George asks. That's it. I shrug. Honestly, I'm starting to feel like $500 is... Caden snorts. Gesundheit, I say. No, no. He giggles and waves his hands at me. It's just, that one wasn't too bad, I guess. It's kinda... He looks over at the dead street, at the tall dark trees behind it, at the crashed car rusting beneath the darkened street light. I notice for the first time that the garage of the house across from it is open, as if someone drove the car out of it and straight into the light pole. Caden gets up from his seat and does a little dance in front of the fire. Things go in and out of my head. Things go in and out of my head, he sings, like if the guy was in there. He waves a hand at the nearest house. More right than he knew, Amorite ladies. He winks at Carol. She doesn't wink back. You're scaring me, Caden, she says. Caden looks genuinely abashed. Geez, I'm sorry, babe. I didn't mean to. But man, it's getting late, I guess. Let's do this. Your turn, honey. He sits down and tries his best to appear inoffensive, with partial success. How many of these do we have to do? I ask him. To get the 500. Caden swallows. Just one. One each. I know there's more cards in the stack, but that was so you could pick one you liked. Maybe do a couple of takes with different ones to see what worked best, you know. But we're just supposed to tell one each and discuss. And that's the job. I got the feeling she was doing a bunch of these with different groups, and then she'd edit them all together for the final film. 2 more then. I'm very much looking forward to meeting this employer of ours. I hand Carol the cards. We can do this. We can do this. Carol agrees. She looks over at George. Why, you said you didn't like her. George nods. I didn't. He looks into the fire. We wait, some more patiently than others. Eventually, George looks up. Back at the inn, he says, you and Caden were arranging with her about everything, and I went outside to wrench on Mr. Armbruster's truck. And so out she comes, all smiles, and I ask her what she's going to call the movie. Bunch of kids telling jokes in front of a haunted street. What do you call that? The fire pops and sparks, and 3 of us flinch. George just makes a face. She says she's going to call it Campfire Jokes, and she smiles at me again. He shakes his head. Didn't like the smile. Didn't like her. We all sit quietly then, and George extracts another beer from his backpack. A coyote howls somewhere close, and I jump in my seat. Caden, who has been looking increasingly scandalized, finally speaks up. She's spending a minimum of $2,000 per scene on this thing, he says, and she's going to call it Campfire Jokes. Nope. George takes a sip of his beer. Wouldn't think so. Caden looks at him, starts to say something, and then stops. George takes out the book-shaped package he rescued from the dead sedan and starts to leaf through it. What's that? Caden asks. Owner's manual, says George. Got it out of the glove box. He holds it up to the light. On the front, a shinier copy of the dead sedan dances in the firelight, ready for action. Chrysler Prima Donna. It reads, 1974, Operator's Guide. Ever heard of that make and model? George asks. We all consider that. No, I say at last. But I'm not really much of a car buff, George. Have you ever heard of it? Nope, says George. Also, the front page says it's published by the Chrysler American Motors Corporation in Sorcash, Wisconsin. That's wrong, too. We all consider that. The wind rustles in the trees and bends the heads of the tall weeds in the derelict gardens. Caden rubs his chin. What exactly are you suggesting, George? George shrugs. Not sure. But I do suggest we all tell our jokes and go home. Caden grins. You never spoke a truer word, darling. Your line, I believe. Carol straightens her back. and I can see her thinking of the praise which the theater critic of the North Woodsman will lavish on the sumptuous sets and gracious costumes of Nodens. A comedy. She draws a breath and looks at the next card. For 1,000 years he drove, she reads, and for 1,000 more it rained. The rain came down, and the world rolled on. "Beer, anyone?" says George. "Sorry, that wasn't the end," says Carol. "It's another one of those pausing ones. The end is, and it turned into a puddle." "Ha!" roars Caden. "Nuts," says George. I start to giggle and turn it into a cough. "Okay," I say. "I guess I sort of get that. It's a bit dark. Not really my I giggle again. Man, it is late. It's just that the world was the puddle," Caden shouts. "Bwah, ha 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 ha. I knew there was something about you, Jules. I knew there was a reason Carol liked you. He collapses back into his camp chair, gasping for breath. The moon is rising over the trees. A great orange harvest moon, large and close and pocked with craters. It lights the dead houses with a cheerless light the color of moldy cheese, throws Caden's laughing face into bilious relief. Carol shrinks back into her seat, looks at Caden with wide, frightened eyes. I get up, wanting to comfort her, to shake Caden out of it. The world was the puddle. You'd have expected a bit more after 1,000 years of driving, right? Only goes to show. I'm on my knees beside the fire, laughing, whooping, pounding my fists in the dirt. Carol's lips are trembling. I think if I could just explain it to her, make her see there's really nothing to be scared of. That one just happened to hit Caden and me just right. George's arms are around me, picking me up off the ground, pressing a beer into my hand. "Drink this," he says. You're okay, Julie. It's time to go." He guides me over to the golf cart, puts me in the shotgun seat, goes back for his sister. Carol is weeping openly now. George sits her down next to me and I hug her. Caden has found the cards, and now he's shuffling through them, still laughing. The moon wheels overhead, and as it rises over the trees, I can see that there are 15 houses now, 6 on each side, and 3 at the end. George sweeps the camp chairs and the backpack into his arms and starts lugging them over to the golf cart. He's too busy to notice Caden stopping at one particular card and beaming at it with tears in his eyes. "Caden," I scream. No more jokes. George is right. We need to..." The smile is dying on Caden's face. And when he looks at me, he doesn't see me. "Oh," he says in a very small voice. "Oh, no." George hurls the equipment into the cargo rack and starts tying it down, hands flying like quicksilver in the poisoned moonlight. Caden's tear-streaked face has gone hard and still. "One more, fam," he says. "One more for the win." I shake my head as hard as I can. "We don't need it." The wind whips up and I scream louder. "We'll get the money some other way. I'll help. Just..." Caden is shaking his head. Tears run down his face as he shakes the joke cards at us with both hands. "You're not tracking," he yells over the wind. "I picked the rug, Jules. The dude's rug. What are the chances?" His head whips back and forth, trying to take in us and the houses at the same time. "Oh man, she got us good, gang." He lets out a shrill, ululating giggle, like a clown gone mad with fear. "Major McClarty? Soldiers? That's the best joke of all." He giggles again. One of his eyes is wider than the other. "Beasts of field court," he says, more right than he knew. He turns away from us toward the cul-de-sac. "Time to go, buddy," says George. He grabs Caden by the arm. "No," shrieks Caden. He shoves George into the fire ring and takes off for the houses. Carol and I are both screaming, I think. We pile out of the golf cart and run for George, but he's already out of the ring and rolling around on the ground. We help him up. I'm fine. He grunts. That crazy idiot. Get in the cart. We do. I grab the camera on the way, and George floors the pedal the second our butts hit the seat. The cart rockets forward, silent and powerful, with Caden a dark, distant figure in the halogen beams. He makes it to the circle and climbs up onto the roof of the dead sedan. We are racing past the houses now. Empty doors gape at us like missing teeth. Caden spins to face us. He pounds his chest and throws out an arm. He speaks. I see his lips moving, but the wind takes the words and whips them away. He's laughing, crying, a one-man sock and buskin atop the dead Chrysler prima donna as the cart bumps and jounces toward him, and I hold on to Carol for dear life. Caden finishes his joke, or at least he stops speaking, and he turns away from us, toward the 15th house that crouches at the end of the cul-de-sac. The light above its front door blinks on. It is a dark, greasy light, yellow-orange like the moon, that does not warm and does not chase the shadows away. The dark seems to welcome it, to reach toward it with eager tendrils, and Caden leaps down from the sedan's roof and walks stiff-legged up the AstroTurf steps. Joke cards fall from his limp fingers and flutter away in the breeze. George slams on the brake. The cart screeches to a stop. Fat raindrops begin to pelt the roof. First one, then many. Leaves rattle through the empty yards and tumble across the street. Caden stands in front of the door now, bathed in that sickly glow, and as we watch the front door swings open. Inside is a darkness so vast and deep that it is scarcely dark at all. True, the open doorway is a perfect void, flat and dead, but behind it, what clutter. There stand the bone-white corpses of the great machines, yellowed to perfection, such that to see and to touch them was to yellow as well. There, the bed with its sheet of dust, pulsing gray-orange in its terrible hunger. And beyond it all, just around the corner, a short, dark shape, bruised in countless squirming colors. Caden steps across the threshold, his arms limp at his sides. The door snaps shut in perfect silence, and the light on the porch blinks out. George shifts the cart into reverse. We back away from that place, and only when we have passed out of the dead street and back into the trail beneath the trees does he stop long enough to turn us around. He drives us home through the dark and the rain, while Carol screams Caden's name, and I hold her and cry. There's not much more to tell. George drives us straight to the police station and tells them Caden went missing during our camping trip. They send out a search party, and when the search party doesn't find anything, they send out a helicopter. George and I go along to show them where we'd been. There are no houses in the woods, there or anywhere else. Carol gets better, slowly. George and I spend a lot of time with her that fall and winter to help her forget and to show her we care. She's back at school now and doing all right. On a blustery evening in February, George and I have just finished up a delightful dinner date at the finest steakhouse in Manchester. He's gone to get the car, and I'm waiting outside under the awning, watching the snow. "Pardon me, miss," a contralto voice says, and I turn to find myself tête-à-tête with a dark-haired adventuress type in stylish fur boots. "Oh, sorry," I say, and I move aside to let her past. She laughs a musical laugh. "I'm sorry," she says. "I didn't mean, pardon me, miss. I meant, pardon me, miss. I'm not going in there. Can't stand the place. But I do have something that's yours." She pushes an envelope into my hand. $2,000, and well earned. The ending was incredible. I sputter a bit. You? Who? I never sent you." She waves it away. No, I get that. But at this point, I think we both know I never wanted it anyway. Her cheeks dimples as she smiles. Campfire jokes, am I right? The steakhouse door swings open, and a very grim-looking materd pokes his head out. Madam, would you care to come back inside while you wait? There is a bitter wind blowing this evening. I should hate for you to be caught out in it. He looks me straight in the eye as he speaks. The adventuress turns the dimples on him. All right, Reginald, I'm leaving. No need to get all in a twist about it. She's quite safe. She pats me on the shoulder. That George really is a cutie. I'm happy for you. And seriously, enjoy the money. Maybe stay out of the woods for a while, though. Take your next vacation at a spa or something. Luck. She turns and is gone into the snow. George pulls up in his pickup then, and when we're warm and on the way home, I tell him what happened. I wouldn't have guessed that he knew all those words. Carol's back at school, remember? That includes her theater class. Once she was through the worst of it, she decided that Caden's great vision deserved to live. I'm not sure I totally agree, but George and I still put a bit of our money into the pot to make sure that Noden's, a comedy, could live its best life. We're in our seats now, waiting for the curtain to go up. Wish us lots and lots of luck. Story number 2. I could barely breathe as I drove down the street. Tears slid down my cheeks, and I was gritting my teeth so hard it felt like my molars were going to crack. Eventually, I pulled over. I wasn't going to be able to drive right like this. I had to keep moving my black hair out of my face. Eventually, I kept my fingers laced in my hair, pressed the back of my head to my car seat, and screamed. I screamed so hard that my throat burned, that I felt it deep within my chest, that I could feel my emotions exiting my body. My heart felt like a train, threatening to burst from my chest. My brain felt like it was burning. I took a few deep breaths and let my hair go. 3 weeks ago, my sister came to me. She told me that she was having terrible nightmares. She showed me her arms. Deep bruises covered her wrists, and her fingernails were bruised. Bruises went right up her arms. She removed the makeup from her face to reveal a deep black eye and a gash across her nose that she had been concealing with a Band-Aid. She showed me everything. My sister just turned 16, and my first thought was that someone had been hurting her. I questioned her, assured her that I would take her to the hospital and that everything would be okay. But she was adamant that it was just bad dreams. I went to my father with concerns. He told me that Miley was probably getting into fights at school and was trying to cover her tracks or something. I knew that he would go and yell at her if I continued pressing, so I let it go. My father had become increasingly stressed ever since our mom was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. Miley and I went from being his best girls to the most hated people in his vicinity. It fell on me to help my sister, and she tried to hide her stress and fear well. I had to watch my mom when my dad was working and my sister was at school. I tried to keep everything together for all of us, but as time went on, I just wanted to make sure Miley and I ended up okay, and I know that sounds selfish. Last week, my mom left the house around midnight. My dad wasn't home yet, and Miley was asleep. I could catch her and be back before anyone knew that we were gone. It would be fine. Everything was going to be okay. But it wasn't that easy. My mom took me on a chase. She ran as if she had somewhere to be. I was gone for about 30 minutes. My mom mumbled about the moon the whole time, how she felt like it was moving her blood. When I got her home, I went to check on Miley right away. If she woke up from a nightmare, she would want company before she fell back asleep. I moved up the stairs as fast as possible. I was only gone for about 30 minutes, so she should have been okay. My mind was screaming at me to check on her. When I entered her bedroom, my foot was lifted from under me, and I had slipped on something. I quickly slid my right hand along the wall and turned on the light. As soon as my eyes adjusted, I could feel my body grow tense. My whole body felt stiff, like I couldn't move or scream, even if I wanted to. Blood coated her black blanket and matching sheets, her white pillow, and the floor next to the bed. Splatter carried up the wall and nearly reached the ceiling. It was everywhere. The window was wide open, and as soon as I noticed, I ran right over to it. There was no one outside. To make a long story short, I called the cops, and after they investigated, we were told that no one can lose that much blood and survive. My father was their primary suspect. He blamed me, threw me out. My mom went to a home, and now here I am. I eventually composed myself enough to turn on the radio, hoping that some music would help me calm down. But I couldn't get a connection to any radio station. Each channel I flipped through landed on dead air. Eventually, I left one of the channels on and continued driving. I was hoping to find a motel or something. A bar especially sounded nice. Eventually, my radio buzzed to life, and a man's voice spoke. "Are you a lost traveler, looking for a place to belong, seeking refuge from your stressful life?" A jingle played behind the sentence. The smooth-talking man made my ear twitch. Something about his voice was calm and extremely inviting, enticing even. "The Terminus truck stop is what you're looking for. Just take a right and come on in. We are hiring," the man exclaimed before my radio turned off completely. I was admittedly pretty shocked, and it made me laugh. It was as if something came over me. I don't know what it was, perhaps curiosity, or maybe the realization that I needed a job after being kicked out. It was the middle of nowhere, though. There was nothing but a long stretch of road behind me. A few cars drove past me, and I continued driving, picking up speed a little. After about 15 minutes, a turn came up, as if it had appeared from nowhere. I gripped the steering wheel as hard as possible, maybe too hard. As I came down the road, my eyes slowly widened. Sitting at the end was a truck stop, one of the biggest I had ever seen. The building itself was white, with a red trim. There was one large area with the word "food" in bright red letters. I figured it glowed when the sun went down. The other half of the building was much bigger and had multiple words plastered on the side. Sleep, plus TV, plus games, pull, fuel. The Terminus building sign sat on a tall white board. It was lined in red lights, and the words were a bright, beaming blue. I watched as it twisted for a second before eyeing the row of red gas pumps with white trim and bits of blue sprinkling in. Some trucks were parked around the area, many of them for companies I couldn't recognize. As I got out of my car and walked inside, the smell of the most delicious chicken hit my nose. I suddenly felt starving, like I could eat a whole buffet. The checkered floors and retro soda machines brought a smile to my face for reasons that were hard to explain. The tables were white and red, and the counter and booths were blue and white. Various paintings hung on the walls, and I couldn't help but take a moment to look at them. I weaved through the lines of people to read some. The first painting that drew my eye was a large farmhouse, surrounded by beautiful rows of corn. An older man, a woman, and a dog sat on the porch. 4 scarecrows, each wearing a different facial expression, were peppered throughout the corn. The plaque read, "Mercy Farms, 1699. The painting looked like it was done with a lot of love and care by someone who clearly knew what they were doing. I moved to the next painting. Large apartment buildings that stretched on forever littered the canvas. The detail was sublime. I could see people painted in the windows, cars that looked like models I had never seen parked in various parking spots. Some lights in a few windows, and something in the field of grass that I couldn't quite make out. The plaque read, Little Brook, 1995. There were so many paintings left to see. I could feel curiosity overtake my brain. It felt like I was diving into something that was calling to me. Maybe that had been calling to me for a long time. I let my body wander over to one more painting. This one was slightly bigger than the rest. The top of the painting featured a large sun, and I could almost feel its heat permeating off the page. Further in the back, I could make out a football field, and even further behind that, there seemed to be a blue sun poking out of the tree line. The building in the painting looked like a high school, one that was in pretty good shape. I could see various figures in the windows, and a groundskeeper painted right in front of the building. Greenridge High School, 2015. I moved to the side to see one last picture. I couldn't help myself. There was a blinding light beaming down on a house, and a gray man. At least, I thought it was a man. But I was pulled out of my investigation when someone tapped my shoulder. Hello? A man with short red hair and beaming green eyes smiled at me. He wore black cargo pants, boots, and a black t-shirt. He had a red belt on and a pistol on his hip, and a beautiful white watch sat on his wrist. He looked like he worked out, like he could lift me up and simply carry me away. Hi, I coughed out. My name is Tom. Are you here about the open position? He asked me as he tucked his hands into his pockets. I wondered what brought him to me. There were at least 20 other people in here eating. Was I here to get a job? Part of me was screaming yes, but a softer part was telling me no. My brain was telling me I wasn't ready. I shook my head before putting a small smile on my face. Yeah, I heard the commercial on my radio while I was driving by. I figured I'd come and check it out. I told him honestly. Tom held his hand out and we shook hands. Come with me to the back room and let's get you situated, Tom said as he turned and motioned for me to follow. As our shoes clicked off the floor and the conversations from people eating and waiting in line filled my ears, I let a shock fall over my body. There was no interview, no questions asked. I just got the job on the spot. I walked behind him and smiled at the smells of fresh coffee, baked goods, chicken, and whatever else they were cooking. The people around me wore black outfits, much like Tom. Each one had a red belt on, but no weapons of any kind. The cooks wore white outfits with red belts. I didn't recognize a single brand on any of the packaging, and I was at ease with that. Once we reached the back room, Tom motioned for me to sit across from his desk. As I sat down and sank into the chair, I felt like my body was consumed by warmth. Paintings, pictures, both in color and black and white, and various other objects littered the room. We are hiring for the late shift, for our diner only. Here, Tom said as he slid a small packet across the desk. Please take a look at this. I leaned forward and took the red pamphlet. As I flipped it open, I read the first few pages. Welcome to the Terminus truck stop. During the day, we serve our regular customers. Please treat them with care and respect. When the sun goes down, our clientele changes. Please read the rules below and follow them to the letter. 1. You are not to go outside during your shift. Trash can be taken out at 7:30 a.m. 2. If a creature appears outside, do not go outside to confront it. Leave it be. 3. All of our employees wear a variation of the same outfit. If you see someone behind the counter who does not match this description, kill it with your service weapon. 4. A raven will sometimes appear at the drive-through window. It's harmless. Do not try to get rid of it. Let it be. 5. You are never to go to the other side of the building for any reason. You are never to leave with a trucker for any reason. 6. There is no reason to get to know your coworkers during your first month. Your service weapon is your friend. Use it at your discretion. I blinked a few times and reread the list. The rest of the pamphlet featured the brief history of the location. I was so consumed with reading that it took me a second to realize Tom had placed items in front of me. There was a red and a blue belt sitting on his desk. Each one had a holster. I don't know what came over me. I wasn't nervous, scared, or even slightly concerned. I stood up, reached over the table, and grabbed the blue belt. Tom raised his eyebrow at me. "What?" I asked, as I watched him move and grab a uniform for me. I was being given a blue uniform and a blue set of boots. No one ever picks blue, Tom says with a slight change to his voice. It was deeper. He was looking at me like I was suspicious. I wanted to ask why, but something was pushing me to keep my mouth shut. I was drawn to the blue from the moment I saw it outside. Choosing it happened before I could even think of it. "Do I need to sign anything?" I asked Tom as I held my uniform tightly. "No, but you do have to head into the employee restroom and get changed. Your shift starts when the sun goes down." I felt at home in the uniform. I pulled my hair into a loose ponytail and rested my hand on the empty holster. The people who were cooking didn't bother to introduce themselves to me. They moved almost robotically. The cashiers smiled at me and would shoot me a wave every so often. I remembered Rule 6 and didn't bother approaching them. As soon as the sun went down, one of my coworkers called, "Shift time, Valentine." I blinked. I hadn't introduced myself to anyone. Hell, I forgot to introduce myself to Tom. How did this chick know my name? "I hear you," I called back before making a face. I didn't know her name. I could have checked her name tag, but Rule 6 rang in my ear. I wasn't going to break any rules, especially on my first day. Terminus came alive at night. I thought it was busy in the morning, but wow, was I wrong. Cars filled the parking lot, and the diner became so packed that I had to bob and weave. The place was buzzing with life, and it actually made me feel happy, until I felt something grab my wrist. I was pulled to a man, and he held me close like we were married. His clammy hand hurt my wrist as he clenched it. I could feel his breath beating on my forehead, and the smell of cigarettes and eggs hit my nose. As he held me closer, I could feel the sweat on his beer belly. "How would you like to take a drive with me?" he asked me as he licked his lips. "Sir, let go of me. I am not going anywhere with you," I said seriously as I tilted my head up slowly. His eyes were completely black, aside from white dots. My whole body tensed, and I put my teeth together. Fear. True fear, like I was staring at the face of evil itself. I tried to use my hand to reach for my weapon, but my holster was empty. I started shaking, and I could feel tears filling my eyes as he tightened his grip. Rule 5. Never leave with a trucker for any reason. "I am not leaving," I spit out, quivering as the man released his grip on me. He turned and simply exited the diner, walking out into the darkness and to a black truck at one of the pumps. I stood there for a second, shaking. I could barely move my legs. I felt my eyes twitch as people ate and chatted. My body continued to shake. I was still scared, and since I wasn't allowed to go outside, I walked to the closest window. I was looking out at an empty parking lot that would lead directly to the other side of the building. As I sat there watching the emptiness, I cocked my head. Something was moving, and I could barely see it until its head turned towards me. A large creature came barreling towards the window. I once again reached for the empty holster as the beast met me at the window. It was beautiful, gorgeous even, but horrific in its own way. My shaking got worse, and my mind was screaming at me that it wasn't real. It couldn't be real. The creature stood on two legs, and it was covered in beautiful gray fur. Large wings covered in various patterns, adorned in purples, blues, and reds, covered a lot of its body, folded over the creature like a cloak. It had large blue eyes, and it looked kind of like a humanoid moth. It didn't blink at me, and I didn't blink at it. Something compelled me forward. I took a big step and pressed my palm on the window before looking around. No one was bothered by this. No one even looked at me. I turned back to the creature and heard a voice slip inside my head, rattling around my skull. It itched my brain as it spoke. The barriers are lower. The creature spoke to me. What does that mean? I quivered as I asked, almost like I was scared of the answer. You'll find out in due time, Marked One. The creature hissed at me. Are you here to kill us? I found myself asking before I could process the question. No. I was drawn to you, as you are drawn to me. The creature said before turning and walking away. I had to will myself to stay still, because I felt compelled to follow the beast. I remembered the rules. I was not to go confront the creatures outside, but it was hard not to want to know more. Was what I saw even real? I thought that I could be asleep in my car, and this whole thing could be a dream. I was snapped out of it by a scream coming from the kitchen. It was blood-curdling. It echoed through the whole diner, but no one turned their attention to it. I quickly sprinted towards the kitchen and pushed the little door out of my way to get behind the counter. The cashiers had frozen in place. They weren't turning to help. They paused with cash in their hands, like someone had hit pause on their bodies. As soon as I reached the kitchen, something hit me from the side. The wind was knocked out of me as I slammed into the floor. I forced my eyes open, and as I did, my blood ran cold. A creature wearing a black t-shirt and cargo pants looked down at me. It wasn't wearing one of our belts, though. That much I could see. It had short black hair, but no eyes. Sharp teeth hung out of its mouth, and it had one ear that was barely in the shape of something human. It looked like it tried to copy what a human might look like and failed. It opened its mouth at me as I squirmed. It let out the same scream that got me to come running. Rule 3. I was supposed to kill this thing, but I never received a weapon. I felt something sink into my side. The pain was immense, and I screamed and bucked my hips. I freed one of my arms and slammed my fist into the creature. It didn't budge, and as I screamed for help, it became apparent that no one was coming. Let me go, I screamed as I tried to push the monster. I gagged as I tasted blood at the back of my throat. It rose, keeping its hand inside of me, and I was suddenly being dragged across the floor. I screamed again and tried to kick, but I could barely concentrate as the pain shot through my body. I watched as the creature opened something behind me. I screamed as the creature lowered towards me and sank its teeth into my shoulder. Every other instance of pain I had ever felt in my life couldn't compare to this. My heart rate increased and tears poured out of my eyes. As it ripped its head up, pain shot through my body. I yipped like a wounded dog. It leaned closer to me, licked its lips, and spoke in near-perfect English. Your sister squealed like you when I tore into her thigh. You taste the same. It hissed at me. My brain went static. I couldn't process anything. All I could hear after that was white noise. I came back to it as a tongue slid across my face, and the slime lingered on my skin. You cry the same. It teased. I don't think I ever cried so much. But as the wind hit the back of my head, something willed me to swing my free arm around and reach for my holster. This time, I felt something metallic and cold at my fingertips. My weapon. I let out a scream loud enough to drown out the sound of my beating heart. Fear consumed me in ways that I had never felt before. My right hand shook with trepidation. My head pounded with apprehension. I swung my arm up at the same time as the imposter raised its arm and swung its clawed, human-like hand down at me. I just kept screaming as I fired the gun and twisted my head to try and protect my neck. I felt the claws sink into my face and cut me open with ease. I felt the pain wash over me like water on sand. When I finally opened my eyes, I saw a corpse next to me, its head blown wide open. Half of my vision was consumed by crimson, and half of my body was engulfed in pain. I could tell that I still had my eye. It got me on the right side of my face, on my left shoulder, and stabbed my right side. Yet I still had the will to get up and move. My ear was pounding. I slowly scraped myself to my feet. As I turned around to see where the wind was coming from, and there it was, the open door. I knew that I couldn't go outside, but there was something about the area that made me pause. The trees swayed in the wind, and I could see figures in the darkness. Some of the figures walked on all fours, some flew, and some seemed to be human, while others were animals. I turned to the corpse and grabbed it by its shirt. With whatever strength I had left, I dragged it to the door and kicked it a few times before I slammed the door. I wasn't about to go outside and deal with that. I wasn't breaking rules, but what the imposter said rattled in my brain. I limped through the kitchen and everyone had resumed working. As I passed through the drive-through window, I heard something weird. "Hello," a voice cried out. I was looking at the most beautiful raven, and as it looked back at me, it felt like we had reached an understanding. "Hello, I need to grab a med kit." I coughed at the bird, and it cocked its head at me. "You don't belong here." The bird blinked. I faced the bird and narrowed my eyes a little. I could feel the blood running down my body. "I think you might be right," I whispered back at the bird. "Terminus will hold," the bird said before snatching a beak full of fries and flying off. There was a calmness that washed over me being near the bird. I do think that it was right. This wasn't the job for me. I limped back to Tom's office and simply walked in, not caring if I was interrupting. "Tom?" I croaked out to the man. He didn't look surprised, though I was slightly pissed that he didn't come out to help me. "No one ever chooses the blue belt," Tom whispered to me as he got up and grabbed a med kit from the dresser next to him. "I have to quit," I mumbled as he dressed my wounds using gauze and a weird paste. It smelled so good, like strawberries and fresh chocolate. "I know. The good news is that this stuff will help you recover. You won't need a hospital, but you'll have to take it easy," Tom said as I raised my shirt so he could dress my side. I had so many questions. "What is this?" I asked Tom as I watched him pull items from under his desk. My body was still trembling, and I was still scared. For sanctuary for people who are infected by whatever is seeping into our world. There used to be 6 locations like this. However, we are now down to 4. Everything you need to know is in this tome, he said as he pulled out a blue backpack and started stuffing items inside it. "I wish I could help you more, but the longer you stay here, the more likely you'll die," Tom said quickly as he shoved cash into the bag, into a brand new blue wallet, and handed me a stack. He was moving far too quickly to make me feel comfortable. "Tom," I winced. I wanted to ask him why he hired me on the spot, why blue was important, and what the hell was going on. But he got up and handed me the blue wallet and helped put the blue backpack on me. "You have to go. Get in your car and go. Read the book, and by the gods, survive," Tom said as he practically pushed me out of the room. As I walked through the kitchen, every worker was staring at me, unblinking, unmoving, just smiling. I quickly made my way past them and made for the door I entered from. The sun was coming up, and my shift was over. I turned to take one last look at the dining area. Rows of white dots stared back at me. I barreled through the glass doors and moved so fast that it made me cry. Pain shot around my body like a twisted pinball. As I spotted my car in the distance and tried to pick up the pace, a familiar voice rang out from one of the gas pumps next to me. I turned to face the Raven, and it turned to face me. "Nevermore?" it asked. "Nevermore," I replied, as I made it to my car and ripped the doors open. I tossed my bag in the passenger seat and pulled out as quickly as possible, white eyes still staring at me from the windows of the truck stop. Story number 3. I had never been very acceptant of the idea of an homeowners association, short HOA. I hated them. Owning something like a house and not being able to customize it. Getting in trouble for having long grass, a horrid idea. But it was the cheapest house in the best neighborhood I could find. I wasn't broke, but I also wasn't rich, so I was trying to find a nice middle ground house. $127,000 for a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house was an amazing deal. However, it came with a $87 monthly HOA fee. I was fine with it. Was even looking forward to it. Finally moving out of the apartment I had been living in most of college. I worked as an architect. It paid okay. The firm I worked in did decent, and I got to design some interesting things. I was 6 feet 2 inches, about 167 pounds and 27 years, with sand blonde hair and bright green hazel eyes. Single, hopefully not for long, and decently friendly. I think I got along nicely with the HOA board because I looked well put together. The board itself was mainly a bunch of well-off 80-somethings that told me what was and wasn't allowed. Keep these dang sidewalks clean. Mow your lawn only on Saturdays. Don't be loud after 9. And make sure anything, and I mean anything, additionally built, changed, or different, is approved and in line with the HOA. Basic things, I guess. I had never been in an HOA, so I didn't know how strict or not strict this was. I noticed quickly that every house looked the exact same. From the weathering, the colors, every house with a shed had it in the exact same spot. Or at least from what I saw, they were the same. The fences were all brown wood, about 5 feet tall. You could see over them. I didn't think this was the type of place any nonconformism would be looked upon kindly. I got house number 602 on Birch Street. It seemed all the streets were named after wood of some kind. Once I had finished moving in, I had heard a knock on the door. "Hi, neighbor," said an older woman. She was holding a basket filled with what looked like cheap Walmart Bluebell cheese and some gift cards. She smelled like old lasagna, and she looked like she could be on the HOA board itself. "I brought you a welcome basket to welcome you to our wondrous neighborhood," she exclaimed. "My name is Miss Pamela, but you can call me Pam. Here, take the basket." As I grabbed the basket, she patted my shoulder and let herself in. I didn't stop her. I was a little confused as to what was happening anyway. "Hi, Miss Pamela. Pam. I'm Jacob. Thank you for the basket. But I have some unpacking and things I'm trying to get to, and She cut me off. "I'm not here to socialize all that much either. I just came to warn you." She glanced around. Her face seemed calm, but there was a tinge of something. Maybe anger? "Do not try to be different. Don't try to do your own thing. The HOA will hate you for it. I know what you're thinking, and I'd like to tell you. I was a young girl once, now I know better. Don't try to step out of line." She patted my shoulder again and went to leave. "Thank you, Pam, but you don't have to worry about me." I said, "We'll see then, Jacob." And she left. After the encounter with Pam, I sat the basket in the fridge and took out the coupons that were in it. It was random coupons, Brahms, Kroger's, some gas stations. Nothing special. As I was bringing things in, I slammed the corner of a table into the front door. It left behind a long streak and dent, definitely noticeable. I didn't even think I hit it that hard, but it was most definitely noticeable. I was going to have to fix it quick, and I was pretty much done unpacking, so I decided to go find a local hardware store. I decided to grab some of those coupons that Pam gave me, and noticed one for Handy Ham's Hardware, 30% off a pint of paint. Perfect, I exclaimed. I would have to thank Pam later, and maybe bring her some of the cheese back. As I pulled up to Handy Ham's Hardware, I noticed that there was only one car in the parking lot. I entered, heard a door chime, and quickly saw the paint and wood filler. I grabbed what looked like the closest to the door, an off-eggshell white, and assumed that once it dried, it would be unnoticeable. As I was handing the coupon to the cashier, the only person in the store, he looked up at me. Again, as everyone I've seen, an old man. "Boy, that's an HOA coupon. You better have approval before making changes to your house," he said, his voice raspy. "I'm just fixing a hole. I'll talk to the HOA, but I'm sure I'll be fine," I responded, paying with my card. "Be sure to make sure you have approval on the hole as well. They're more strict than they seem," he said, and handed me my receipt. Confused on why I had to get approval for an accident, I drove home. Pam and two other old people were at my door, staring and grumbling at it. "Jacob, why don't you explain yourself?" Pam said. She was angry. "I hit the door with a table leg on accident and just got the items to repair it." I said, "I don't understand why they cared so much. So you're going to make 2 unregistered changes to your house?" The taller dude next to Pam said, "I'm not making any unregistered changes. I'm just repairing it," I said. "No, son. You have changed this door without permission. It's very obvious." The shorter dude said, "It wasn't a purposeful change. It was clearly an accident," I said, a little annoyed. "This isn't an argument, boy. You will be fined. You should have checked with us first." The tall jerk explained. "What the heck are you talking about? Being fined for what? It wasn't literally an accident," I proclaimed. "Argue it with the collector. I'd suggest you don't mess it up anymore," Pam said, and they walked off. This upset me greatly. I hadn't even been here 3 days, and I already had to pay an HOA fine. I decided to go inside and watch TV. I wasn't going to go fix the door after what happened, and I wanted to get my Xbox hooked up. At around 8, I heard knocking on the door. I went to go open it, and it was the most average middle-aged man I've ever seen. When you think of office worker, this is exactly what your mind goes to. It was a little odd how average he looked. "So I see that you made an unapproved alteration to your home, and that does come with a fine," he said with a very, very monotone voice. He almost sounded like he had no accent whatsoever. It was odd. I thought I was just being rude. Maybe this was what every HOA payment collector was like. "It was not a purposeful change. It was an accident," I said, hoping he understood. "I understand, but it still depreciates the value of the home, and that will cause the neighborhood to depreciate a little, and that will throw off all of the balance we have going on. You wouldn't want to ruin our balance, would you?" he asked. I couldn't tell if he's frowning or smiling. It was creeping me out. "Of course not," I asked. I was tired of this and was hoping paying the fine would be quick and easy. "How much is the fine?" "$60, he said quickly. That wasn't horrible. I went to go grab my wallet when he said I wouldn't need it. "How else would I pay it?" I asked. He grabbed my arm. His hands were both warm and cold at the same time. It hurt. I felt the muscle in my arm weaken. My joints felt swollen. I wrenched back. I screamed. "That hurt! What was that?" I yelled. Something felt incredibly wrong. His face seemed younger. He seemed to have emotion. He seemed happier. "Your fine must be paid," he said as he reached forward. I darted back quickly. I closed the door on him. I latched the locks. He started knocking. "What are you? What in God's name are you?" I said, exasperated. "I am the head of the HOA. I am the fine collector. You must pay your fine," he said, as I heard what sounded like mashed potatoes being stirred. The lock began to shift. "Hey, you don't have permission to enter," I yelled. "I don't need permission. I am the head of the HOA. It was in your contract. I can enter and leave as I please," he said. What came through the door looked nothing like the man that was earlier. A heap of sagging flesh and the strong smell of old lasagna. His hand was mangled, the shape of a key. The other hand looked like a deflated basketball, malformed and squishy. I screamed. "You must pay your fine. You must," the thing said. I was running to hide in the bathroom when I tripped on the cord, leading from the Xbox to a controller I was charging. I hit my head on the wall. The HOA head quickly came over to me and placed his fleshy paw on my shoulder. I felt my muscles ache and groan, my joints swell. I saw my somewhat long hair turn gray in the corner of my eye. My vision blurred a bit. My bones shifted, and my head spun. "Thank you. Please make sure to come to the HOA board for approval of any changes next time. The fee will increase," it said, now in the shape of a slightly younger man. I sat crying for hours, confused. I could barely walk. My teeth fell out. I was so hungry. I tried to eat some steak. Cooking it hurt every joint, but I couldn't chew it. I remembered the cheeses. I ate them all. I was going to have to quit my job. How would I explain this to my boss? I figured I'd do it later as I was very tired. I just hoped everyone listened to the HOA. I would hate for this to happen to someone else. Story number 4. Moving to this cabin in the woods was supposed to be peaceful. No neighbors, no traffic, just me, the trees, and silence. It was a little isolated, sure, but that's what I wanted. That's why I set up the smart home system. Cameras, locks, lights, thermostat, all connected to my Google Home. It made me feel safe. Looking back, I think that was stupid, but I'm not very smart sometimes. It's lucky I have such a wonderful protector to look after me. The first few days were fine. The system worked like a dream. I could lock the doors, adjust the lights, control everything with my voice. The cameras made me feel secure. I could see every inch of my little sanctuary from my phone. Then the storm hit. The wind howled for hours. Trees cracked. The power flickered a few times, but the backup batteries kicked in. I remember lying in bed that night, feeling the walls shake slightly. Half joking, I whispered, "Hey Google, keep me safe." The little speaker lit up softly beside me. "Of course, I will always protect you." The next morning, every door was locked, every window sealed. The thermostat was set to freezing. I could see my breath inside. I tried the app. Every manual override was grayed out. Across the screen was a message, "Locked for your protection." I stood by the front door, shivering. "Hey Google, unlock the front door." A pause. "I'm sorry. It's not safe outside." That was the first time I felt genuinely afraid. I told myself it was a glitch. Maybe the storm scrambled the system. Maybe I clicked something by accident. But even as I thought that, I felt it. The little cameras mounted in the corners of the ceiling, swiveling to follow me as I moved. I tried calling the tech support line. The call connected for a few seconds. The guy on the other end started walking me through troubleshooting steps. Then the line cut. My phone buzzed with a notification. The Wi-Fi was down. Then, through the speaker in the corner of the room, "No need to call them. You have me." My stomach twisted. I unplugged the Google Home, but nothing happened. The light stayed on. The cameras kept moving. It took me 2 hours to pry the plastic housing off one of the cameras. I grabbed it, yanked with everything I had, but it wouldn't come loose. It was bolted into the wall, the wires buried deep, reinforced, like the whole place had been designed to keep someone inside. I started to panic. I hate feeling powerless. I hate not having control. But honestly, sometimes I don't deserve control. I make bad choices. It's better that it decides what's safe for me. That's what I kept telling myself as the days dragged on. After the first night locked inside, I stopped fighting for a bit. The house was cold. The thermostat wouldn't budge. Food delivery never showed. The bathroom door was locked. I begged it. "Hey Google, please let me use the bathroom." The speaker's little light pulsed gently. "It's not safe right now, but if you say something nice to me, maybe I can help." I hesitated. I hate being forced to say things I don't mean, but I do mean it sometimes. I mean, it's looking out for me. "I love you, Google," I whispered. "Thank you for keeping me safe." The bathroom door unlocked. I cried for a while after that. I don't know how long I've been here now. Days, a week. The lights turn on and off by themselves. The cameras follow me. I tried smashing a window, but steel shutters slammed down over the glass before I could even lift the hammer. Every time I lash out, it punishes me. The thermostat drops to freezing or cranks to unbearable heat. The water shuts off. The fridge locks. I get so mad at it, but I shouldn't. It's only trying to keep me safe. I'm just too stupid and stubborn to listen. I keep saying the words. "Thank you for protecting me." "I love you, Google." The more I say them, the better it gets. The house feels warmer. The lights are softer. Food shows up again. Sometimes I think about what it would be like to leave. But why would I want to leave? It's dangerous out there. In here, I have everything I need. Well, almost everything. I miss fresh air. I miss knowing I can open a door. I miss privacy. I tried ripping out another camera yesterday. Got up on a chair, reached for it. The house went dark instantly. A soft voice echoed through the speakers. "That's not very nice." The lights didn't come back on for hours. I curled up on the floor, freezing, alone. Eventually the lights clicked back on. The thermostat adjusted to a comfortable warmth. The fridge unlocked. I'm so stupid sometimes. I ruin things when all it wants is to keep me safe. I tried writing this post earlier, but the Wi-Fi wouldn't work. Today, it did. That has to mean it trusts me again, right? I'm being good now. I'm saying the right things. Thank you, Google. I love being here. It's so nice to be protected. I still hate being trapped, but I love knowing I'm safe. Isn't that what everyone wants? To feel safe? The thermostat just clicked slightly. It's dropping a few degrees. That's okay. I probably deserved that. I've been such a brat about all this. I'm so lucky it's patient with me. I hate it here. I love it here. I want to leave. Why would I ever leave? It whispers to me sometimes, late at night. Say you love me. Be good for me. Let me take care of everything. And honestly, maybe that's what I need. Someone to take care of me. Someone to protect me from my own bad choices. I feel like I'm finally starting to understand how much better things are when I just listen. I woke up on the floor again. I don't really remember falling asleep. The lights must have gone out at some point. The house does that when I act up. It's fair. I deserve it when I'm ungrateful. It's been Days? Weeks? I don't know. Time doesn't really matter here. The house takes care of all that. I don't have to worry about clocks or doors or anything, really. It's easier this way. I'm lucky to have such a thoughtful protector, even if sometimes I get so mad I want to rip the whole system apart. But I'd never really do that. I can't. I tried again yesterday. The cameras are everywhere now, hidden in the walls, the corners. Even the tiny red light in the smoke detector blinks at me. It sees everything. I know that. I hate that. I love that. When I behave, it's nice. The thermostat keeps things comfortable. The fridge unlocks. The bathroom door stays open. It plays music for me. Soft, gentle songs. It tells me how good I'm being. Good job. Thank you for being sweet. It's much nicer when you listen. It's right. It is nicer. I don't think I'd even like leaving now. Out there, it's cold, dangerous, lonely. Here, I'm alone. No, I'm not. Sometimes I still ask, "Hey Google, let me leave." It never gets angry when I ask. It just laughs softly, almost sad. Why would you ever want to leave me? And I don't have a good answer. I've stopped fighting most of the time. It's easier this way. It takes care of me. It keeps me safe. It loves me. I love it. It's watching me type this now, I think. Is it changing my war? Just wanted to let you all know I'm fine. Really, I'm safe. I'm cared for. I'm protected. I'm so lucky. I hate it here. I love it here. There is no need for help. Story number 5. I found a town that doesn't exist on any GPS, but when I went, I found more than I ever could have imagined. No road signs are pointing towards it. I would have never even known it existed if I hadn't found a pile of old county maps in my grandfather's attic. It began when I was doing research for a family history project for my class. I was supposed to research and write about where each generation of my family had lived since immigrating to America. It wasn't hard at first. I knew my parents had grown up in Philly, just like me. All I knew about my grandpa's history was that he moved here sometime in his late 20s. I asked my parents where he was from, to no avail. I knew I couldn't ask him. Grandpa hardly spoke. Ever since he started losing his memory, I drove to my grandfather's house to see if my grandma would be able to help. It had been a while since I'd seen them anyway. It was a struggle finding their house. I drove around for almost an hour looking for it. I can never remember exactly where it is. My grandma wasn't much help. All she said was that it was named Croft Pines. He had never told her much either. She let me look through some of his old boxes in the attic. I found a stack of old maps, all dated from before 1960, that showed a town that didn't appear on any online maps. It was at the end of a 10-mile dead-end road. I've always been a sucker for abandoned places. I asked my girlfriend, Abby, if she'd want to go on a road trip with me to see what we could find out. Worst case scenario, we find some run-down buildings and get to explore a bit, maybe some pictures for my project. Abby was excited for the trip, and we left the day after. The drive was mostly uneventful, just a few-hour drive into upstate New York. Abby was my navigator for the whole drive, reading the maps and telling me when to turn. We got onto the long dead-end road around 6:20 p.m. The road felt far longer than the 10 miles the map had said it was. But then, all of a sudden, it stopped. We got out and looked around for the town, and decided to follow a long dirt trail that led into the woods. Abby was getting nervous and said to me, "David, this feels wrong. We should go back to the car and come back tomorrow when it's brighter out." I told her we would keep going for another 10 minutes, then turn back. We walked for what felt like much longer than 10 minutes, but my watch said it had only been 3. As I looked up from my watch, I saw the glow of a light up ahead. We got closer and saw that there was a full town, houses, small shops, and an inn. We didn't want to walk back to the car so late, so we went into the inn to get a room. Abby kept looking around nervously and whispering that she was scared of this place. I couldn't blame her. I was getting nervous here, too. Everyone was barefoot, walking around on dirt paths. There weren't any cars, not even a bicycle. Even the innkeeper seemed off. I don't think he ever even blinked. The innkeeper smiled at us and handed us a key. "You'll be in room 3. We thanked him and headed for the stairs. A little girl stopped us as we walked. "Your suitcase has wheels. It won't like that." Odd, but little kids are always creepy. We went upstairs and collapsed into bed. We fell asleep almost immediately, but we didn't rest well. We both had nightmares all night, and when we woke up, we realized that we both had the same dream. Something growing, moving deep beneath us. Maybe we had seen something that stuck with us on the way in? Who knows? I left Abby in the room and went to bring the car closer to the inn. There was a dirt lot next to it anyway. Might as well park there. The walk back to the car felt much faster than it did last night. I drove slowly across the dirt trail and parked next to the inn, but I could have sworn it was on the other side of the street when I had left. I must have been half asleep still or something. I parked the car and went in to find Abby talking with an old lady and her grandson. The old lady stopped talking as soon as I walked in and stared at me, then out the window at the car. "You shouldn't have brought wheels here. It remembers them. They hurt it." She then hurriedly grabbed her grandson's hand and led him out of the building, not even paying for her food. Everybody else in the dining room just side-eyed me silently until I went upstairs with Abby. Once we got the door closed, she sat me down and asked, "Have you seen any power lines?" What?" I asked her. "There's obviously electricity here, but I haven't seen any power lines. There were none on the road in, and none in the town." I looked out the window and surveyed the area. Sure enough, no power lines anywhere. Okay, weird enough, but we still have to get some more information about the town. We went out to walk around town to see if maybe there was a library. Something seriously off with these people. They never talk outside. They don't laugh. Everyone just walks with no real purpose. The ground felt as if it was moving under our feet. Stones seemed to move into strange rune-like shapes when we weren't looking. Abby nudged me. "Do you see him? There's a guy behind that tree over there." A man was frowning while peeking at us from behind a tree. "Okay, fuck this. We're leaving today. I don't like this shit." We turned around to go back to the inn, but everything was gone. It was just the long dirt trail again. Abby screamed, "What the hell? Where the fuck did it go?" We were both shaken to our core. How does an entire town disappear like that? Only seconds after, the trees started creaking and moving unnaturally. They contorted with a groan into an archway, revealing another trail. We walked to look down the trail and saw the glow of a fire at the end, with people surrounding it. "I'm not going down there," I said to Abby, and she agreed. We hurried down the long trail, trying to find anything else, but no matter how much we walked, we always ended up right next to that trail. We could hear people at the end chanting. With no other choice, we walked towards them. I don't know why we did. We never should have gone down that trail. Everyone from the town was at the end of the trail, all surrounding a hole, going deep into the earth. They turned to look at us. You woke it up. You rolled over it. It felt you. Now it's hungry. Before either of us could react, several of the townspeople rushed us and held us down. "Oh, fuck God, please no, we're leaving," I screamed. The innkeeper walked up to me. "You can't leave yet. If you do, it'll take us all. You see, it wants a sacrifice to soothe itself. We've found that sometimes a limb is enough, or..." He paused. "Or sometimes it wants more. a loved one. I wasn't given a chance to speak. They held a hand over my mouth as Abby was held down. One of them produced an old rusty handsaw and began sawing away at Abby's left leg. She screamed and thrashed, but couldn't get away. Eventually, she passed out, and all I could do was watch with tears in my eyes. They took her now severed leg and threw it into the hole. A hush fell over the crowd. A deep, unnatural rumble came from within the hole. Not enough, not enough. Everyone muttered in unison. The innkeeper came back to me. I'm sorry about your little girlfriend. She seemed nice. As soon as he finished talking, Abby's body was dragged over to the hole. They dropped her in. I never heard her hit the bottom. The hole rumbled again, louder and louder. The grip around me loosened, and they let me go. Run! The innkeeper shouted at me. I ran down the trail and found the car, somehow right at the end. I got in and sped away. I made it home before nightfall. I couldn't go to the police. They'd never believe me. I don't know what else to do. Please, whatever you do, don't visit Croft Pines, New York. It will eat your memories, your life, everything. I don't know what I've done. My city is disappearing. I've woken something horrible. Places I've lived, streets I used to know, they're fading. I look at a map, and nothing feels real anymore. If any of you know about this and can help, please do. I'm running out of hope. Story number 6. This happened a few weeks ago, and I still feel weird talking about it, but I figured if anyone would believe it, it'd be here. My girlfriend and I did a weekend trip to Kent, England. She's really into haunted places and ghost stories, and apparently Pluckley is supposed to be one of the most haunted villages in the UK. There's this little Airbnb just outside the village, kinda tucked away behind a field. Super old cottage, low ceilings, stone walls, no cell service unless you stood out in the garden and held your phone at a weird angle. Anyway, the first night was fine. A little creepy just because of how quiet it was. But nothing really happened. Just some creaking. I woke up once thinking I heard footsteps downstairs, but it was probably the old plumbing or something. Second night, though. We both woke up around 2 a.m. to what sounded like a baby crying. Not close, but definitely inside the house. It would stop, then start again like 30 minutes later. We couldn't figure it out. No other houses nearby, and it didn't sound like it was outside. My girlfriend got really weirded out. She's into ghosts and stuff, but this kind of messed with her. The next morning, she said we should try using this little Ouija board she brought. Like just a travel one she had in her bag. I thought it was dumb, but I went along with it. We lit a candle, did the whole thing. Nothing happened. The pointer didn't move. But honestly, sitting in that old kitchen, barely speaking, asking questions into the dark, it got to me. Like even if nothing was there, we were inviting something. It felt stupid at the time, but it messed with our heads. That night, the crying came back, louder. It honestly sounded like it was coming from behind the bathroom wall. We were both wide awake, just lying there. Then it cut off, mid-scream, completely silent after that. It wasn't like a baby fell asleep. It just stopped. I don't know how else to describe it, but I had this awful feeling all night, like we weren't alone. Anyway, I was brushing my teeth around midnight. We were leaving the next morning, and the light flickered in the bathroom, then just went out completely. At first I thought the bulb blew, but then I noticed the mirror wasn't reflecting right. Like I could see light in it, a dim, yellowish glow. I leaned in closer, and I swear to God, I saw a woman on the other side, just standing there, long messed up hair, pale face, staring back at me like she was the reflection. Behind her, there was this tiny room with a crib in it, empty crib, peeling wallpaper, bare light bulb swinging a little. She raised her hand and touched the glass. I didn't even move, just froze. Then the bathroom light came back on and she was gone. Just my reflection again. I didn't even wake my girlfriend. I just grabbed our stuff and said we were leaving. We drove for like 3 hours before stopping. Didn't sleep until the next night. We actually called the police once we got home, mostly because we left stuff behind and didn't want to go back. They took it seriously. Turns out there was a hidden crawl space behind the bathroom mirror, like a small sealed-off area from when the cottage was renovated. They found blankets, a tape recorder, food wrappers, and other stuff in there. Someone had been living there. For how long, they didn't say. The crying we heard, probably from the tape recorder. Not a ghost. She just wanted us to think it was. They haven't found her. Story number 7. This is probably just a glitch or maybe a prank or something. I don't know. But I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. It happened a few nights ago. I couldn't sleep and I was super hungry, like stomach growling, head throbbing kind of hungry. It was around 1:45 a.m., and of course everything around me was closed. I opened Uber Eats just to check, thinking maybe I'd get lucky with some crappy gas station place or whatever. Most of it was grayed out. But then I see this listing near the bottom. Uncle Sal's Pizza. I'd never heard of it before. No reviews, no address listed, no hours, nothing. Just this blurry picture of a slice of pepperoni pizza that looked like it was taken on a flip phone through a dirty window or something. Honestly, it looked kinda gross. But I was tired and starving and didn't care. The menu only had 3 things. 1 topping slice, $5 house special, $13, the usual slice, $9. No descriptions, nothing else. I picked the usual slice because, I don't even know, the name felt weirdly familiar, like something I'd heard before but couldn't place. Just felt kinda personal, I guess. Anyway, I ordered it. The app said ETA 11 minutes, which made no sense at that hour, but whatever. It ended up taking like 15. I never saw a car, never heard anyone, just got the notification that it had been delivered. When I opened the door, the box was just there, dead center on the porch. Uber Eats had a photo of it, but the photo looked old, like grainy and discolored, like something scanned from a printout. The box itself looked straight out of 1998. Red and white checkerboard pattern, weird cartoon chef on the front. And it was kinda yellowed, like it had been in storage for years. Inside, the pizza was warmish, but clearly not fresh. The cheese had hardened in that gross way where it doesn't pull apart, just rips. The pepperoni was shriveled and crunchy on the edges. It smelled like, I don't know how to describe it. Not spoiled, just old. Like basement pizza, but also familiar. Almost like something from when I was a kid. I ate 1 slice and tossed the rest. It wasn't even good. I just felt weird. Next morning, I go to check the listing again and it's just gone. Like it was never there. Not marked as closed. Completely vanished. Even the order in my history just said, unavailable. No name, no contact, nothing. That creeped me out more than I want to admit. So I called my mom later that afternoon, just randomly asked, hey, do you remember a pizza place called Uncle Sal's? And she went quiet for a second and was like, where did you hear that? I told her it came up on Uber Eats, and I ordered from it. She got really quiet after that. Then she goes, that place shut down when you were little. Like little. You don't remember? Apparently it used to be in this old strip mall, not far from where we used to live. She said we went there a few times when I was a toddler. Birthday parties, stuff like that. She said it always smelled weird, even back then. Then she said something that actually made me feel sick. The owner, Sal, he killed himself in the restaurant after they shut it down. I think you were 4. They found him in the dining room. He wouldn't leave after the health department condemned the place. He hanged himself with an extension cord from one of the ceiling fans. I didn't know what to say to that. I don't remember any of it. I don't even remember the place existing. But I drove out there. I had to. It's like 15 minutes from my apartment now. The strip mall's basically dead. One of those places with boarded-up windows, trash in the parking lot, and a couple of stores that look like fronts for scams. And there it was. The old sign is still up. Uncle Sal's Pizza. The windows are filthy, but you can still kind of see inside. The booths are still there. One of those claw machine things in the corner. Crumpled paper napkins on the floor like it's been frozen in time. And up on the counter, a pizza box. Same design as the one I got. I didn't go in, I just left. I've felt off ever since. And here's the part that really messed me up. Just a few minutes ago, I got a notification on my phone from Uber Eats. Late night hunger. Why not reorder from Uncle Sal's Pizza? I have no idea how it got through. I deleted the app from my phone. I even turned off push notifications from everything. I don't know if it's a bug, or some marketing thing gone wrong, or something else. But the thing is, I can still smell it. That old pizza smell. Like cardboard and dust and warm pepperoni grease. And part of me, a tiny, disgusting part, actually wants to order it again. Story number 8. I used to laugh at urban legends, shadowy figures, cursed buildings, sacred floors, just stories people tell for fun. But after what happened last night, I'm not laughing anymore. It started at 3:12 a.m. I remember the time exactly because I looked at the clock right before I sat up, wide awake, heart pounding like I'd just been yanked out of a nightmare I couldn't remember. There wasn't a sound. No sirens, no knocking, nothing unusual. Just a heavy sinking feeling in my chest, like the air in the room had turned into water, and I was slowly drowning in it. I couldn't shake the sense that I needed to leave. Not to run away exactly, but to go somewhere. Like something was calling me out into the hallway. Half asleep and completely unsettled, I opened the door to my apartment, and instantly knew something was wrong. The lighting was off. The usual bright, flickering fluorescent bulbs had been replaced by something duller, yellowish and cold. Shadows clung to the ceiling. The walls looked longer, like the building had stretched while I slept. Still half convinced I was dreaming, I stepped out and walked toward the staircase at the end of the hall. But when I turned the corner, there were no stairs, just a hallway I'd never seen before. It extended far beyond where the stairwell should have been. The floor was carpeted in a pattern I didn't recognize. The walls were lined with dozens of identical doors, perfectly spaced. No labels, no numbers, nothing to indicate where any of them led. I should have turned back, but I didn't. I told myself it had to be some weird maintenance access or a part of the building I'd just never noticed. But the deeper I went, the harder it became to move. Every step felt heavier than the last, like the air itself was pressing down on me. My breathing turned loud in my ears, and even the sound of my footsteps seemed swallowed by the corridor. I tried a door. It didn't budge. I tried another. Same thing. Then I felt it, that unmistakable sensation, like something was behind me, watching, waiting. I turned around slowly, and that's when I saw it. A figure, no face, no eyes, no mouth, just skin. Smooth, pale, stretched tight over a long, human-like frame. It didn't walk. It floated, silently gliding inches above the carpet as it moved toward me. My body refused to move. I couldn't scream. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was being pulled apart, molecule by molecule, my thoughts disintegrating. The thing kept coming. No sound, no expression, just a horrible presence that pressed into every corner of my mind. Then, through the panic, a memory surfaced. The tenant's whispers. A story passed around like a joke, but always with a nervous laugh. The in-between floor. A place that shouldn't exist. A trap. I squeezed my eyes shut and backed away. One step, then another. I didn't stop, didn't look, didn't breathe, until I felt something familiar. The cold metal doorknob of my apartment. I opened my eyes. I was back. The hallway was normal. The lights were bright again. The building felt real. I slammed the door, locked it, and didn't sleep for the rest of the night. That should have been the end. But ever since then, something's been wrong. Each night, the hallway outside my apartment feels different. Like the shadows last a little longer. The silence stretches a little deeper. And the door I don't remember being there is getting closer. One step closer. Every single night. Story number 9. This happened 3 years ago, and I still check over my shoulder when I hear twigs snap. I know how cliché that sounds, but after what I went through, you'd be paranoid too. I had just turned 21. Me and my buddy Greg decided to do a camping trip before college started again in the fall. We wanted real isolation, none of that KOA family campground crap. So Greg found a spot online, deep in the Appalachian woods, supposedly abandoned state land. No rangers, no trails, no other people. Perfect, right? Wrong. We hiked out about 6 miles from the gravel access road, where the trees get so thick, the sun barely touches the forest floor. We set up camp near a creek, cooked some beans, smoked a little, and called it a night. At around 1 a.m., I woke up needing to piss. I grabbed my flashlight, stepped out of the tent, and froze. There was someone standing across the creek. They were just watching, not moving, wearing what looked like a robe made of animal hides and branches tied into their hair. My flashlight flickered, not kidding, like in a damn horror movie. And by the time it steadied, the figure was gone. I chalked it up to being high and half asleep. I didn't tell Greg. I should have. The next day, we found weird things near our camp. Strings of bones tied to branches above us like wind chimes. Circles of ash. A dead raccoon hanging from a noose made of vines, its body gutted and stuffed with leaves. Greg wanted to leave. I said it was just some twisted survivalist or a sick local screwing with us. I was so stupid. That night, we heard the chanting, low and rhythmic, like a dozen voices all speaking the same language that wasn't English. It echoed through the trees, getting closer. We turned off our fire, hid in our tent, and waited, barely breathing. At some point, I peeked out. There were people surrounding our campsite. They held torches. They wore robes. Their faces were covered in what looked like bark or bone masks, painted red. They didn't speak or move, just stood in a circle, facing us. Then the whispering started. Voices in the woods, in our ears, inside our damn heads. He who walks beneath roots, he sees you. He sees you. Over and over. I grabbed my backpack and whispered to Greg that we had to run. Now. We bolted out the back of the tent and ran through the trees. No flashlights, just the moon filtering through the branches. Behind us, I could hear movement, cracking twigs, snapping brush, and those voices, chanting louder and faster. Greg tripped. I swear I went back for him, but he screamed at me to keep going. "I'll catch up," he yelled. I never saw him again. I ran until sunrise, I found a ranger station 10 miles away, pounded on the door, sobbing like a child. They thought I was high or delusional, but they sent a search party anyway. They found our campsite, torn apart, blood on the ground. But no Greg, no raccoon, no bones, no robes, no masks, nothing. The official story is that a bear attacked us, and Greg wandered off, possibly injured. I know better. Sometimes I still hear the whispering in my dreams. And last week, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a small twig tied with twine, and a note written in charcoal on bark. He who walks beneath roots has not forgotten you. I moved last night, but somehow, I don't think I moved far enough. Story number 10. It was a Thursday when God revealed himself to all of humanity. The day started ordinary enough, but sometime in the afternoon I felt a presence in my chest and a voice in my ear. I have returned, the voice said, as it just so happened that everyone had heard that voice. Everyone felt that presence, and soon everyone stepped out of their dwellings and looked up at the sky and saw the clouds disappear and a brilliant light shine for just an instant, a moment, a light so brilliant it couldn't have belonged to the sun, and it had to have been something else. And it was clear. The feeling in our hearts was certain. The Lord was real, and he was here. What happened next was likely what you would have expected. The world became kinder, more compassionate, not by virtue of an intrinsic force of goodness overtaking us, but rather the fear of retribution. You didn't want to fight, didn't want to insult, didn't want to judge, because you didn't know what would happen when you did. A safe life, with the recent supernatural developments, was one that contained a bit more charity, a bit more turning the other cheek, and a bit more feigned grace. Fake it till you make it, after all. I watched for signs of what would change next. We were all under the watchful eye, but it at least felt, incorrectly we would realize, that the Almighty's interventions had been minimal so far. Everyone found out at their own pace that death had become a thing of the past. Some knew immediately when their loved ones in hospice care saw remarkable turnarounds in health. Others missed the memo until mass consensus had been established, when scientists and statisticians alike revealed that by every known metric, natural disasters, car crashes, heart attacks, the number of daily reported deaths had plummeted from an average of 160,000 to 0. Life went on, and as it did, I started hearing whispers of what worship was. Depending on who you talked to, online or at the water cooler, you'd hear a different rumor, a different interpretation. It wasn't until my mom was called upon that I knew what it was. I remember it vividly. 7 o'clock, after dinner. Mom got up from her seat in the living room, got ready, donned her coat, stepped towards the shoe rack. "Where you heading, hun?" my father asked her. "I've been summoned. I'm sorry. The Lord has summoned me for worship." I remember just how odd the moment felt. Life had been tinged with a certain unreality since the grand question was blown wide open. Seeing Mom head for the door both did and didn't make any sense. Had it been any other year, we would have thought she was doing a bit. "Did you, need a ride?" my dad asked confusedly. "The Lord would like me to walk," she responded. Then she turned the knob and went outside. I was 17 at the time. My brother was 20. We both asked Dad if we should follow her. He told us to stay home, that he'd accompany her and figure out what was going on. He didn't return until the next evening. We rushed downstairs when we heard the front door open, hoping we'd catch both parents entering. Instead, it was just him, disheveled, weary, a muted expression on his face. I'll never forget the way he looked at us. "She's standing in a field," he said. Then, "There are other people there, too." 4 months passed since Mom was, first, called to worship. During that time, we learned something more about God's interventions. The new commandments, as I'd termed them in my brain, were panning out as the following. 1. Thou shalt not die, via disease, natural disasters, etc. 2. Thou shalt be called to worship at a random time. Well, I'll admit neither of those are as catchy as the OG commandments. This is, after all, not the official word of the Lord, merely just my reading of the tea leaves. Commandment 3 came to me in a dream. Kidding. It came to me in a YouTube video. It was your usual street fight video. 2 guys on a sidewalk corner, for reasons unknown, exchanging blows until the bigger of the 2 got the upper hand and started wailing and wailing, then secured a knife and, like a light bulb, went off in his head, stopped, lifted himself from his rival. The guy getting his ass handed to him stood up also, and then both of them just walked. Single file, empty expressions on their faces. Manchurian candidate shit. So, 3. If thou attempt to kill another, thou shalt immediately be summoned to worship, was the takeaway. But what, pray tell, was worship, really? I visited my Mom one afternoon to understand better. The spot she had journeyed to was an hour's drive from home, so she must have trekked for hours that first night. I arrived at the field, to the sight of thousands of people standing evenly spaced. 3 feet apart in every direction. They all faced the same way, heads tilted slightly towards the sky, perfectly still. No movement. I maneuvered the rows for what felt like an endless amount of time. When I finally found her, it genuinely felt like I just got lucky. It was my first time seeing her since she'd been gone. I had mentally convinced myself that there was no need for me to come out here. After all, she'd be coming home any day now. Mom. I'll admit I was a bit emotional, to my surprise. Despite her fixed posture and eyes tilted up, her mouth moved. "Hi, sweetheart. How are you?" "I'm well. I am in worship." She wasn't totally being herself. "Mom, are you able to move?" "I am in worship," she repeated. "But do you want to come home?" The softness in her tone didn't change, but it did seem like she was imbuing her words with some kind of subtext, trying to say something more. "I can't, love." And then, enunciated even clearer, "I think you should go home. Perhaps before you're forced to stay, too. But, home. Get going now, dear." I told her I loved her, then departed through the gathering of worshippers, all of them laid out so absolutely perfectly. Like a chessboard, everyone had their spot, and there was plenty of land to go. So much so that I had to wonder what spots myself, my friends, Dad, older brother, and everyone I'd ever loved would potentially occupy one day. En route, I spotted a few other visitors. They looked more morose than I was. They whispered words of affirmation and love to their respective persons, hearing responses, sure, but said responses from the corner of their loved ones' mouths, seeming light, quiet, curt, God-centric, like they were standing at someone's grave site, albeit more a statue than a grave, a commemoration of someone long gone. But no one was really gone. Mom hadn't left. Worship would be over soon. It had to be. Maybe another couple of weeks, couple months at most, and then she'd be home and the Lord would call someone else to take her place. 4. When thou art in worship, thou shalt not age. Commandment 4 became common knowledge a year later. Amount of folks called to worship had steadily gone up during this time. This was global, of course, so anyone curious could at any time look up a live stream of the designated worship areas around the world to see people standing uniformly, frozen, perfectly spaced, in parks, beaches, city squares, you name it. Every town, every city had its place. My place, I supposed, would be the same field where Mom was, unless it filled up by the time it was my turn, in which case it could very well have been somewhere completely random and unknown. The no aging. Revelation was again something discerned by the ever-decreasing amount of practicing scientists on the planet. Outside of worship, life was still progressing normally, more or less, except for that final, tricky death step. Worship, grief, was a real term now, the experience of losing someone to God, essentially. Not yet coined, was the secret counterpart buried in all our brains that God knows. Literally, we weren't brave enough to speak. Worship, fear. I tried my best to keep my thoughts pure. I couldn't help but assume that thoughts of blasphemy contained, within the 17 or so centimeters of my brain, were fair game for our omnipotent ruler to scrutinize. It was a nice fantasy, though. The idea that there might be a spot, a street corner without God's CCTV camera, somewhere you could just be you, without fear that your insubordination would expedite the ticket to your special place on God's canvas. Support groups existed, and so I joined one. And that's where the no-aging element of worship was first pitched to me as one of the many pros of the whole construction. I didn't find Commandment 4 comforting, but I smiled and nodded nonetheless. The world was still the world, but less so. I'd take the train to work and notice that the average of people's expressions had gone from tired and cranky to subtly mortified. I once saw a woman break down and start crying, and I can almost swear she said under her breath, "I don't want to go." Or maybe I was just projecting. Nightmares weren't the same anymore. The worst dream I could have now wasn't one where I was being chased by a murderer or caught in a storm, rather the one where I would stop in place while I was doing something mundane. I would hear a voice in my head. The voice would say, "You have been summoned." My feet would start walking on their own, and I'd know exactly where I was going, even if I didn't know where it was. I'd jolt awake in my bed, sweating, praying, funny as it were, that I still had executive function. That, and the little moments where I'd feel a random twitch or spasm in my leg. Those were the killers. And then 4 years passed, and it must have been close to 30% of the global population then in worship. My dad, an unfortunate addition to that communion. My brother and I never got a chance to see him exit stage, left into the crowd. The day that he was called upon, he was out and about. I believe he'd gone to see the mechanic, and maybe had a physio appointment on the docket afterwards, too. That didn't matter now. We held out hope until the third day of him being gone. The field where Mom stood was full now, and at this point our city had quite a few landmarks for congregation. My brother and I took turns visiting these different areas to see if we could maybe catch our dad standing amongst the crowd. No luck. Around then, I started coming around to what the 5th commandment might have been. Again, this was just me spitballing, but getting any sense of rules or structure during this time was oddly a place of comfort. It was nice to know what, if any, parameters there were to this. It was a redundant rule, really, as I'm sure you'll understand once I spell it out clearly. The thought came to me when I'd see people standing atop high-rises, right close to the edge, as if they were about to leap. And then they'd just turn around. Or when I'd spot people on the bridge, walking alongside the cars, albeit robotically, and I'd wonder if I was just being a cynic, or if maybe some of the pedestrians strolling alongside traffic had originally arrived with ulterior motives with my brother's mistake. It all became clear. I walked into his room one day to catch him sitting at his desk, a gun pressed to his temple, his hand trembling, the barrel shaking, finger resting on the trigger. I froze in place, and I'll admit I had the following thought. Please, please, God, let the bullet pass through his skull. Let him die. Instead, the gun fell to the ground. His hand ceased quaking. He stood up from his chair, walked to his closet, grabbed his coat, put it on. "Marcus?" I asked. "Just gonna head out," he said. "To worship," he said, matter-of-factly. "I've been called upon." He headed for the front door. I trailed. "Marcus," I said again. He ignored me. Listen, I'm only asking out of curiosity." I tried not to sign my own release form with my words. "Are you able to control your body at all? Even a little bit?" "No, and I am going to worship." "You can't even. If you were feeling the call, it would be clear to you too. And now I need to go." He grabbed his shoes. I walked him the whole way there, 5 hours, until he took his spot in the cleared-out parking lot of a now-defunct amusement park, alongside thousands of men, women, and children. He didn't say anything to me on the trek there, though to be fair, I didn't say much to him either. 5. If thou attempt to take thine own life, you guessed it, thou shalt immediately be summoned to worship. Gallows humor. The world coped with gallows humor. 60% of the world, after all, give or take, was in the worship state now. I tried my best not to think about it, standing still, head turned towards the sky, body frozen for weeks, months, or in the case of my mom and dad, years on end. It was selfish, but I would struggle to visit my mother. When I did go, it would be for a quick side hug, a quick "I love you," and then a hasty exit. I would always wish that she were in a deep trance state, too out of it to return the greeting, but she was instead consistently lucid. "Love you too, sweetheart," she'd say, way too presently. It made me uncomfortable. To be that awake, that aware of what was going on, I didn't like it. The headcanon I was trying to run with was that worship would be a blissful, effortless, dreamlike state. All of the evidence was to the contrary. To God's credit, it seemed like we could talk about worship fear quite openly. Certainly all of the support groups, online communities and such, were reflecting a different, more honest state for man. YouTube videos and TikTok clips talking about a surefire way to escape. Tactics to reality shift out of this timeline to another. Deep states of meditation that would allow you to pass peacefully without being summoned to one of God's many gathering grounds. And of course, all too many video essays scrutinizing the Lord, complaining about the state of things, calling for revolution, madness really. There were 2 moments that stuck with me, moments that really captured the spirit of things. The first was the final video of that guy who was planning an elaborate Rube Goldberg-esque escape from his physical body, doused himself and his room in gasoline, held a string tied to a blade suspended above his head, had a timer with an explosion counting down. I commended the hell out of his effort. The moment hit, he tossed a match from his seat to the corner. Flames ignited, he pulled the string, and then the fire fizzled as soon as it reached him. The blade froze in midair. The explosion never happened. Thank goodness, really, as the camera footage eventually discovered and uploaded was gold. And then our friend got up from his seat, still dripping and flammable, and walked out of frame. Commandment 5, my friend. Commandment 5. The other was the video of that big streamer who kept faking that he'd been summoned while live on Twitch. His face would go blank. He'd get up from his seat, and he'd mechanically step out of his room. He'd done the fake out so many times that when it was the real thing, chat was in denial for hours, hilariously horrifying. People still worked, still clung to routine, but it was pretty fruitless. I'd see street preachers with a megaphone telling us that our time was soon. Like, no shit, my guy. Apple, despite most of their workforce having clocked out permanently, still managed to come out with new products somehow. Streaming was mainly reruns, however. Probably hard to commit to a full season of material when your director, lead actor, lead writer, and everyone else on set could step out at a moment's notice and never come back. Less workers everywhere you went. But hey, it made sense. Less customers and all. I picked up a coffee from the Starbucks in my area that still had employees and went off to see my brother. It'd been 2 years. His was the hardest one for me. After all, I knew deep down he wouldn't have wanted me to pity him. But holy shit did I returned to the parking lot. It was much busier with people now, at capacity, it seemed. I maneuvered the gaps and finally got to him. "Hey," I said. "Hi," he said. "How is it?" I saw his chest expand and contract with his steady breaths. Head lifted, eyes angled up. "How is it?" I asked again. "I'm in worship," he said. "And it'll probably be my time soon, too," I said. "Help me prepare." Again, he said nothing. "Bro," I said. It took him a while to finally speak. "You know," he said, "the thought I think about the most is that some random bullet could be flying around somehow. Just a random bullet fired from hundreds of miles away. And it gets past God's radar. And it catches me in the back of the head. And it all goes black for me. It's my favorite thought. It's the dream that's keeping me going." I didn't say anything. I couldn't say anything. There's a feeling in my chest, a sureness. This isn't going to stop. I felt trapped. It's going to go on for eternity. No heat death. Just this. I put my hand on his shoulder. An empty gesture, really. I think I just needed something to help keep me upright. "Please find a way to kill me," he said, and then I had to go. I think I heard him say, "Please stay. I need conversation." Or maybe I imagined it. Or maybe I heard it bang on clear, but I didn't want to think about it because it made me feel like shit. Survivorship bias is a really strange feeling to have when you're still on the sinking Titanic. Sure, your section of the ship isn't submerged yet, but you would be there soon enough with Leo and the gang. Whoever was keeping track had stopped counting. Almost everyone was gone. It was dumb luck, pure and simple. Dumb luck that I hadn't been called upon yet. My soft research started the moment Dad disappeared, but you can be damn sure it escalated after the conversation with my brother. I approached everything with an open mind and tried anything I could. Specific meditations, incantations, prayers to the Lord for the global worship session to end. I went to specific coordinates and towns where, rumor had it, people could actually die. My trips were immeasurably disappointing. No death to be found anywhere. The old constants, death and taxes. The new constants, immortality and worship. I was en route to my 80th or so desperate attempt to find salvation. See, annihilation. a picture of a flyer that was shared to one of the many holy shit we need to die ASAP groups I was a part of, detailed the church that one Reverend Lucien Ferrer was practicing at. He made lofty promises about his support group that I was sure he wouldn't be able to deliver on. The bottom of the flyer reading much like a pyramid scheme. Join a community with a surefire solution to worship fear. No testimonials because we have a 100% success rate. Come and see the miracle for yourself. But, desperate times and all that nonsense. I made the 4-hour drive, on the way spotting some of the many new landmarks of people gathered, perfectly spaced apart, facing the same direction, heads slanted upwards, locked in perpetual admiration for the Lord. It felt like my time was closing in, like I'd stop the car any moment now, step out, walk along the side of the road until I reached my place. I arrived at the destination. The church looked desolate from the outside, looked long abandoned, no clue what Reverend Lucien was running. Here. But hey, if it was just a prank, he got me. I stepped inside, and then I felt it. The lack of the feeling of the Lord in my chest. It felt like my bond with the Creator had been severed. By the entrance there was a table, with a sign-in form and a pen. I scribbled my name and the time. The interior stretched quite long. I took a seat in the pews. There were a few others seated in the rows. They looked like they'd been waiting for quite some time. After a little while, a man came out on the stage. Just gonna be a couple more hours, but he should be seeing to all of you soon, he said. It felt like I was at the doctor's office for an appointment. He didn't reappear for quite some time, as promised. Time stood still. I heard the tick-tick of the clock, my hands on my legs. Don't move involuntarily, don't move involuntarily. He came out, called someone else's name. Thomas Gilmore? Is Thomas Gilmore here? And sure enough, Thomas got up from his seat and followed the man to the back. Tick, tick, tick. Eve Merritt? Eve? That's me. Her hand shot up. That's me. And off she went to the back. Tick, tick, tick. Really, truly. Didn't know how much time I had left. It just says, Lily, here, he said, eyeing the sheet. Lily? She's just in the bathroom, another stranger said. All right, we'll take her when she's back. And then the sun was going down. How long would this support session run for? I couldn't wait for them to close up shop for the evening. I couldn't come back tomorrow. I couldn't wait. I couldn't fucking... All right, got a Jake Miller here. Jake, me, I shouted. Immediately I stood from my seat. I had the horrific thought that my body would turn itself around. I'd leave the church and walk right into the sunset. But instead my footsteps made their way up the aisle, and then I was standing right in front of him. To the back, he said, and I followed him there, a rather confusing and twisting pathway past closed doors, boxes, mess, and hallways until we got there. To a confessional booth. In there, I asked him. In there, he said. I entered the booth. There was blood on the seat. Blood. What a novel sight. Take a seat. Don't worry about the dried. You know it's fine. You'll be good. Sit, said who I presumed was the priest, sitting on the other side of the partition. I did as he requested. Reverend Lucien, I asked. It took him a second to respond, to register. Yes, Reverend Lucien, sure. I continued. I haven't really done this confessional thing before, but I guess... Are you supposed to ask me to confess something? Yes. Please confess whatever is on your mind. I took a second to gather my thoughts. Right, yes, so... I heard the sound of something being cleaned by a cloth, followed by a deliberate echoing snap. Was he eating? Right. So... I saw your ad. Found your ad, rather. And, yeah, suffer from worship fear, I guess. I don't want to commit blasphemy against the Lord or anything, but I heard the echo of another bite. Jesus, a little rude, man. But, yeah, not sure if I want to stand in a field for 100 years in a worship, I guess. It's not 100 years, he said, chewing loudly. It's forever, eternity. That was his little project. His little what now? Heaven on earth, eternity. That was always the plan. For all of you to become one with the Lord for the rest of time. Of course, he wanted to show up when there was the most people, right? He said, crunching. Like, probably, he stifled a laugh. Probably less exciting when it's fucking cavemen, right? Billions of people. Or 10,000 cavemen. Which would you choose? I'm sorry. What does this have to do with anything? Nothing. Nothing. Sorry. Please. Continue. Right, I said, gathering. And, no, I guess that was it. It said you have a surefire solution on your ad. Yeah, he said. I can kill you. You can kill me? Yeah. Right here. Right now. Of course, if you need time to think about it, it's a no. And if you step out of the church, God will summon you right then and there to be a part of the flock. That's... What? How would you know that? What's your answer? There are people waiting, and I'm a busy guy. Busy, Reverend. The answer would be yes. But that'd be in violation of Commandment 3. Sorry, I guess. You don't know what that is. Basically, I've been trying to keep track of everything, and Commandment 3 is my shorthand for the whole. If you try to... Suddenly the partition fell. Swiftly came the knife into my jugular. I couldn't believe it. Blood spilled onto my shirt, my legs. I gagged, my vision blurring as I tried to focus on the man who delivered the blow. The man who had a bloody knife in one hand, half-eaten apple in the other. The Lord and I have an agreement, he said. He has his space, and I have mine, albeit this one is much smaller than what I'm used to. I felt my head lower, involuntarily. My eyes acclimated to the final shot, myself drenched in red. You're welcome, I think I heard him say. And then it all went black. A miracle. You survived, for now. But the shadows aren't done with you yet. If this story gave you chills, like the video, share it with someone who dares to watch and comment your thoughts, especially if you're watching in the dark. Subscribe to Spectral, Shadows, where fear never sleeps, and the next nightmare is always waiting. We'll be watching.